Thank you. All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate the introduction. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say that I'm very honored to have been asked to take part in this health fair, this health conversation. And if you have any questions whatsoever, when we're done, I'm going to give Lisa the permission to hand out my information to anyone who wants to follow up and ask any questions that can help you to move more freely and a little bit stronger into the future and to take more responsibility and accountability for your body. That being said, the title of today's conversation is Luck Favors Movement. Now, this particular title comes from a quote from one of my former coaches who liked to walk around the football field and say, luck favors movement. Um, when you stop moving and you plant your feet, that's when you get run over. But as long as you keep your feet moving, good things will continue to happen. And I instantly attached to that because I realized that that could apply to so many different places in my life. And I started utilizing that as a motivation for getting things done. Um, But talk about fitness and physical activity. That is a perfect quote that fits perfectly into this arena. And by the way, if you have any questions whatsoever while I'm talking through this, please don't hesitate to bring it up. We're going to have a question and answer at the end of the section as well. But if you have any questions or anything pops up, anything pops in your head, just feel free to flag me. Okay. All right. So what is luck favors movement? How does that apply to physical activity? So, our bodies have not adapted very much since we first stood. After crawling across the ground, we stood up on our hind legs and started to walk upright. The body is pretty much still maintained many of the same mechanics and biomechanics that it found back then. But the biggest problem that we're facing right now is that we have taken on many things that were once considered a luxury have become a standard piece of our society. And as such, we've all adopted it as something that we deserve to use. I'm talking things like elevators. I'm talking about things closed parking spots uh, to wherever you're going. Um, I'm talking about you know sit and be fit. Um, listen, our bodies are designed to move, and so as such, I just want to make sure that we all understand what that movement is and how broad that statement is. Um, so of course, there's exercise. And we don't like to refer to exercise as exercise because we find that many people have a problem with the word exercise, probably more so than they actually have a problem with exercise itself. Um, just the idea of exercising brings a lot of negative feelings. But every single one of us on today's phone call, on the Zoom call, probably list increased exercise every year on January 1st as one of our resolutions. And if you're like most people, that resolution only lasts about a month and a half to 2 months. And as soon as the sun comes out, we find a reason to get outside and not go to the gym. And then we stop becoming active. We find a reason to do more sitting. But it's not extremely difficult to get movement in. The American College of Sports Medicine recommends that we do 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise. Moderate intensity means exercise that you can hold a conversation, but you're still going to break a sweat. Um, but they recommend that we do 30 minutes of moderate intensity exercise 5 times a week. Now, can we get the same benefit if we did it an hour and a half? I'm sorry, 2.5 hours of exercise in a couple of days. Well, we could get a lot of the benefits, but not the same. And the reason they spread it out over the 5 days is because we're trying to create good habits, and good habits are something that, the hardest part of people often ask me, what's the number one thing you hear about people trying to get back into shape? What do they ask you? And I tell them the hardest struggle for everyone trying to get themselves back into physical activity and back into shape is just showing up. The consistency is a major issue, and so I've had to tell some clients, all I want you to do is change into your workout clothes, and then walk around the inside of the gym. I want you to make two passes around the circumference of the inside of the gym, and then go home. And they said, "That's it." And I said, "Yeah, that's it." You know, and that gives them a lot of relief. But I know from experience that they're going to do more than that, and that's, I take away the stress of the expectation of the workout, and free them of that responsibility. And once they've made that pass once or twice, I'll ask them the next day how it went, and they said, "Well, I was already there, and I decided, I might as well get on the bike since I'm here, or I might as well get on the treadmill since I was here." So I know that's going to happen. That's what I'm looking to have happen when I make that suggestion. Um, but in any event, um, so 30 minutes of cardio or physical activity 5 times a week, or 20 minutes of intense physical activity. Intense physical activity is defined as anything to get your heart rate in the 70 to 85% target heart rate zone. You can figure out your target heart rate zone by taking the number 220 and subtracting your age from that number. And then you're going to multiply that number by 70%. And then you're going to multiply that number by 85%. And that tells you where your heart rate should be in the operational zone when you exercise. I don't
Wait,
recommend
you
you
have to
start.
repeat that again because we want it in the chat.
Oh,
So
no worries.
age,
Yeah, so it's 220, the number 220
okay,
minus your age, and then whatever number that comes out to, now you're going to times that number by 70% to get the low threshold of your heart rate, and you're going to times it by 85% to get the high threshold of your heart rate. Now, obviously, as you get older, that number comes down. But again, we're trying to operate in a zone where you're going to create some progression and some adaptation. And we don't want to work you out so hard that you end up on the floor, unable
okay.
to breathe. So, so that being said, um, there are many benefits to exercising, or physical activity. I'm sorry. One of the benefits is improved cardiovascular health. You're going to strengthen your heart and your lungs, and with that cardiovascular improvement, it's going to also give you the chance to improve your endurance and your overall cardio strength. You're going to also be able to benefit from improved mood. And there's been a recent study that I read that said that physical activity decreases the risk of developing dementia as you get older. And I think that happens based on what I was reading, that exercise increases the cell regeneration within the hippocampus. And so that helps to improve your memory, and also decreases the chance that you'll develop dementia, just primarily because the volume increase of the number of cells in there will help ward off degeneration as you start to age, and as you start to feel the effects of all the negative things that we've done over our lifetimes that affect that. You're also going to improve your muscle strength and your bone health, which is something that's very important for women, especially. Um, Men also need to strengthen their bones as well, but women who are postmenopausal have a tendency to develop osteopenia or osteoporosis, and weight training or some type of resistance training, or even walking for that matter, will help to increase your bone density. Not just slow it down or not just stop it from getting more fragile, but actually will reverse it. So that's another great reason that you want to be able to do some type of physical activity. Um, and there's another study that has been circulating around lately about um, the study that concluded that lower body leg strength and muscle mass in the lower body is a direct indicator of all cause of um, fighting all cause mortality and extending your life, extending your life to a point where doctors are recommending that instead of the walking. But in my own research or my own study of the research that I've seen, there were some flaws that I see. Now maybe I just need to keep searching for more information. But they compared the squatting leg exercise activity to walking minutes a day. But they said that was 10,000 steps. And I walk 10,000 steps every day, and it takes me more like an hour and a half to get 10,000 steps, not 30 minutes. So I'm trying to figure out exactly where the missing information is. Because they said they compared squatting 10 times, 10 squats a day every, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of myself. So there was a study that said that if you do 10 bodyweight squats every 45 minutes for an 8.5 period throughout your workday, that you'll derive more benefit, uh, increase your insulin sensitivity, uh, decrease your chance of developing diabetes, and so on and so forth. Um, they said they compared that to a group of people who did 10,000 steps a day. And then they described that exercise of 10,000 steps as 3 10-minute walks for 30 minutes total time. And like I said, I do 10,000 to 15,000 steps every single day. And most of the time I get up in the morning and just go out for a walk. And it takes me about an hour and a half to get 10,000 steps in. So I'm trying to figure out, either they're walking at 8 miles per hour, which we don't define as a walk, we define as a run, um, or there's something that I'm missing somewhere. So as I search for more information, I'll be able to give you more information later to help clarify that. Um, but speaking of walking, if you can just like take the stairs instead of the elevator, makes a huge difference, especially if you're only going a couple of floors. If you work in a building that you have to travel back and forth between the floors to communicate with your coworkers, try taking the stairs sometimes. Try taking the stairs every time if you're only going a floor or two. If you're taking more, if you live on the 10th floor or higher, I usually recommend to my clients to take the elevator to maybe 5 floors below where you're going to end up and then get off and walk the last 5 floors. Um, but you can also do anything like dancing, dancing in your family room to your favorite music. Um, you can form your own walking clubs or join a walking club. Something that because if you ever paid attention to the Blue Zone reports, and I'm not sure if you've heard of the Blue Zone reports that show you where most of these the 100-year-old people are living comfortably and long lives, you'll find that they do a lot of walking. And there are different blue zones all around the world, and they do a lot of walking, and they think that it contributes quite significantly to their physical outcomes. But let's see. Besides the stairs, besides dancing, you can also, if you have a friend or a family member who has a dog, take their dog out for a walk. That's an easy physical activity that you can get involved in, or even just gardening. Gardening is a moderate intensity exercise, and you just want to make sure that if you're tending to your garden correctly, not the way I do it, but if you're doing it correctly, then then you'll find that you should be able to break a sweat while you're doing that. Let's see. Get a pedometer if you're going to walk. That way you can accurately track how far you're going. And then also, make sure you get a doctor to take a look at you do a physical or something like that before you engage in any physical activity that's going to be new or different than what you've been doing, more intense than what you've been doing. It's always a good idea. And then, ask yourself, a couple of questions like, are there any immediate family members who are suffering from heart conditions or heart problems or strokes? Do I have a history of any cardiovascular issues in my family? Do you have any joint issues that could seriously impact your ability to move? All those things are things that we can modify your movement on. Just don't find an excuse to sit throughout that. Lisa and I have known each other for a little while now, and when Lisa and I first met, I was in need of, I thought, in need of a new hip. Um, but since that time, 2 years ago, next week, uh, I had both hips replaced because it turned out that I needed both hips replaced. And so I'm religious walker now. Religious. I walk everywhere. Um, uh, my kids don't want to go walk with me. They think I walk too much. They don't want to have any part to do with that. Um, but Yeah. Besides walking, dancing, if you want to get involved in a gym type workout, if you're the type of person who can convince yourself that that's a great place to start, which it is, you have a lot of different options available to you when you work out in the gym. Um, if you're the type of person who can get into that, then just make sure you talk to your doctor first, your medical team first, and then take advantage. Most gyms have a free personal training session with a personal trainer. Take advantage of that and make a decision on if you can move forward without them or if you need to move with them going forward. And also just don't forget this one point. Long before gyms were around, people were in shape, so you don't have to join a gym to get yourself back into shape. You just have to move your body the way it was designed to be moved. And that being said, I will open the floor to questions.
So, James, thank you very much for this. Quick question. Two things actually. When you mentioned going to the doctor for checkup or what have you before you start working out, you touched on some things that are important, but I think maybe some more details on like what to talk about, right? Because
Sure.
yeah, especially if you may or may not know what kind of workout you're going to do, maybe you've not done it before, what would you suggest are good questions to ask when you go to the doctor, before starting a workout program? And second, I think, can we maybe settle in a little bit more? I'm 47. I'm not embarrassed to say. And I hate cardio, right? I like walking. Um, and I can attest to how transformative just merely walking on the pavement can be to your whole body, right? And so I think I have some friends that are in my age group and they're adamant. They spend hours on the treadmill. I'm like, you're wasting your time. At our age, it's not going to change your body. And they're like, well, why don't I look any different? Why aren't I losing? And I think it's important to really point out some of the myths or dispel some of the myths. Weight training doesn't make a woman look like a man. It's just not going to happen. But
Sure.
as we age, it's even more important that was muscles. And when you're just sitting still, the more muscle you have, your metabolism is higher. So those are
Sure.
just two things I think we need to spend a little more time kind of dispelling those myths, because there's a lot of perimenopausal, even postmenopausal women struggling with bellies that cardio is not going to get rid of that. You got to weight train. It's better for our bones. And of course, to sculpt your body or change your body, you got to weight train.
Yeah, and those are all great points, Juanita, and thank you for the question. The first question was what type of question should you ask your doctor? You want to first and foremost, you want to tell your doctor that you are thinking of getting involved in some type of an exercise routine. And even though you may not know what that exercise routine is, specifically, your doctor will have a general idea of what that means, right? He knows that means that you're going to be doing, he's going to make some assumptions that are probably incorrect as well. Most doctors think that you're going to choose, as a woman, that you're going to choose cardiovascular activity first and foremost. And studies show that women do historically choose cardiovascular exercises mostly to get into what they think is into shape. And that's just because of all the myths that you talked about. People always thought that you had to burn fat to get thin, and you do have to burn fat to get thin. But the problem with aerobic activity is it doesn't differentiate what type of tissue it's disposing of. So when
Mhm.
you're doing running on a treadmill for half an hour or something like that, it's burning through the fat that you have stored, but it's also burning through some of that muscle that you have stored as well. Um, and the reason for that is, you know, eh, there's no single activity that we do that burns all fat or that just does one thing. Even when we're weightlifting, our body's utilizing fat and protein and carbohydrates, together in different proportions. So the thing about trying to lose weight, strength training is the best way of doing that. It puts a very high demand on your system. It increases your metabolism, and as you gain muscle mass, and it is possible for women, even postmenopausal women, to gain muscle mass.
Mhm.
Um, you know, as you gain more muscle mass, then your body does burn more fat and calories when you're just doing nothing but just sitting around, because you have a higher content of muscle. Muscle demands more energy be used to keep it active and to feed it. Um, so does digestion. So does just simply sleeping. You burn
Mhm.
calories when you're sleeping. So, all those things are happening, but you want to optimize your body's ability to burn fat. You don't want to just lose weight. And so many times, a lot of women are thinking about losing inches and losing weight and not thinking about losing fat. And that's really what they're after is, you should try to lose as much fat as you possibly can and try to maintain as much muscle as possible and while you're doing that. Did that
Yeah.
answer your question?
Oh, yes, I thank you for those points, and I think I know I'm struggling, with that belly, the belly I never had before, but I do appreciate that, and I think another thing I'd like to mention is what you mean by obese. Like, what is a healthy weight? What should we be striving for, really?
Well, I mean, listen, obesity is clearly defined, right? Your body weight is some 35%, if I'm correct. I'm trying to remember at the top of my head, 35% over where it should be. Um, the most important thing, I'm careful when I answer this question because I can't tell you or can't tell someone who came to me at 250 pounds who managed to get their weight down to 225 pounds that they're not in shape or they're not getting, so as long as you're doing your physical activity, you're being mindful of how you eat, you're getting plenty of rest, and you still are trying to move towards a healthy weight, um, I'm going to always applaud you for that. Um, it's like the body weight index, body mass index, that's one of those things that is constantly off. Um, I'm 6 foot. When I was a football player, I was 6 foot, 205 pounds, and I was 3% body fat. And
Mhm.
the BMI for me kept saying that I was obese.
Right.
So, it's
Can you
just a matter of, just making sure you're getting your exercise in, making sure you're eating as clean as possible. Try to cut down on your red meat consumption. Try to cut down on your pastries and things like that. The breads, the muffins,
good stuff?
the dishes, all the good stuff. Exactly. um, you
Can you
know,
hello?
DeCarlo?
Yes. I have a question. Can you touch on a little bit? It was great presentation also about activity and movement. But can you touch on the importance of actual stretching too for prevention of injuries? And also that's really good for your lymphatic system as well. So it's important to stretching.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. that's a good point as well. It doesn't really matter what type of exercise you get yourself involved in, cardiovascular, resistance training, yoga, any of those things. You always want to have a good mix of flexibility into that program. Uh, you know, when I played football, I used to I actually worked for the San Francisco 49ers for a short while before I went into the league. And there was this wide receiver who always said to me, all you need is speed, strength, and flexibility to make it in this league, right? And flexibility is a huge, huge marker on your progress. What happens is every time you go to use your muscles, you want them to be in a natural, elongated state so that you can utilize every one of those muscle fibers to do what you're trying to do. And so in the cross bridging, what happens is, muscles, they slide like this, right? And then when I contract this bicep, basically what happens is the muscles kind of cross bridge and they kind of pull into the middle like that and create that little ball on top. If I do that over and over and over with heavy weight, instead of returning back to this natural length here, it might only return to here, and that's why one of those things when you post workout, you feel so tight. It's mostly because you haven't elongated the muscles back to their natural length. And so it's always important to do a dynamic warm-up before you exercise and a static activity or static stretching after you've exercised. And the reason for that is a dynamic movement or a flexibility exercise that mimics the movements that you're going to be doing is really good because it heats up the specific muscles that you're going to be using. Heating them up helps elongate them. It also helps prepare those muscles for the work that you're going to be doing. You don't ever want to do one of those 30-second, 1 minute hold stretch, which we call a static stretch, before a workout. And the reason you don't want to do that is because that kind of shuts down your neurological system to that muscle. It shuts down the impulses to that muscle because basically when I hold it in that stretch position for a long amount of time, it convinces the body that what I'm trying to tell it to do is to stay in that long position and relaxed. And so to try to get it to fire up again takes a little bit of activity. And that's when you can get yourself injured and tear something when that muscle is shut down neurologically. So you want to do a dynamic warm-up, squats, jumping jacks, things like that, anything to get you going. We typically tell our clients that we want you to warm up until you break a sweat. And that gives you a good indication that you've been doing enough warming up, dynamic stretch. After the workout, again, we're going to go back to now after I've bunched this muscle up and it's all tight and entwined, I need to return it back to its natural length so that it can heal and repair itself. And that's when I do want to do that 30-second to a minute stretch hold because it's going to do that, but also it decreases the chance of developing any cramps. Because from a neurological standpoint, if I've done 5 sets of 12 something with weight, right? That's 60 times I've made it do this over and over and over. And then I go to do something else and it's just sitting waiting. And then I decide, let me pick up this bag of potatoes, and put them on the kitchen counter. And I bend my arm and the arm says, oh, we're doing our 61st rep. Boom. It does that. And you go, oh, what happened, right? And the worst thing in the world is to get that in your hamstring or your quadricep or get them in both places at the same time, which I've had many times. So you always want to do a dynamic warm-up before you start. And by the way, if done properly, that can serve as your exercise for the day as well. So you can do 10 to 15 minutes of a dynamic warm-up. It's going to increase the length of those muscles, warm them up, and get you burning calories all at the same time.
Do you do that before you walk?
No, what I do is because walking, I don't get into a run. And so I spend the first 5 minutes of my walk just working on my gait and my stride length. Yeah, and so that I can start to get my body prepared for moving at a faster pace.
Okay. All right.
But one question, how important is the surface that you do those warm-ups in, like the jumping jacks and jumping rope, the surface that you're actually standing on?
It depends on your body, right? So many people come to me. I'm also a former USA track and field certified coach and a former ultra marathon trainer as well, right? So people come to me and they're like, "Hey, I want to start running. I want to run a marathon, or I want to do something I've never done before, and or I just want to lose weight. I want to get in shape." And people tell me I should run, and I say, "No, you shouldn't run." But because you have to prepare the body for running. And there's a lot of different things that have to work perfectly for you to be able to run correctly without injuring yourself. You have to have proper range of motion. You have to know your gait. You have internal rotation or external rotation with your feet. Are you landing on the ball of your foot, or are you landing on your toes, or you're landing on your heels? So the surface becomes really important. Typically, with a beginning runner, somebody who says, "I want to start to get out and run a little bit," I'll have them go to the park and have them run like on a baseball field or a soccer field, something that's flat, that doesn't have a lot of holes, and that's going to be soft and cushiony on their joints as they land. Because every time your foot strikes the ground, that shock wave moves up your leg, and your hips are what stabilizes that from getting any higher up. And it works your body over quite a bit if you're not prepared for it.
There are quite a few individuals on the call, James, that are a part of an exercise group. And they work out Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays together as a group. I'm going to ask about variety for when we exercise and we do certain things. Talk to us about, I'm not in that group. I'm still working. Most of them are retired. So I'll come join when I retire. But talk to us about making sure that when we're in that, we're exercising is it important to do varied exercises, not do the same things all the time, or does it matter?
Yeah. So the answer to that question is yes and no.
Okay. All right.
And so variety is great for a number of reasons, right? And I'm going to start with planes of motion, right? There's three planes of motions that the body likes to move through. There's a frontal plane, which is, here it runs side to side here. Um, there's the coronal plane, which is out here in front. And then there's a transverse plane, which moves you this way, right? Our bodies are designed to do all of those movements. And most people spend all their time in the coronal plane. Everything they do is push, pull in this way, some way, shape, or form. We do a little bit of things out here, but most of us spend no time in the transverse, right? And the problem with that is that most of the time I use football players as a perfect example. Football players who should be well trained in all those activities and all those movements, they usually tear their knee, or their ligament in their knee, when they're moving transversely. It's a tremendous amount of load being placed on the joints. And you always want to have your body. Someone mentioned earlier about functional training. I think it was Lisa that mentioned something about functional training. Functional training is important because you're preparing your body for life, for the life's little unexpected surprises that pop up. When I was training in Manhattan, I had all my clients running stairs. Was part of their routine. And many of them asked, like, why do we run so many damn stairs? I hate the stairs, And I said, you live in New York City. If the power ever goes out, guess what you're going to have to do to get to your apartment, right? And so sure enough, we had that major blackout. What was that, 2004 on the eastern seaboard here? And one of my clients who lived on the 43rd floor in her apartment, and she called me the next day and she said, I just wanted to let you know that I had to climb those stairs to get to my apartment yesterday, and I made it. And she goes, and I was thinking, my God, JC was right. But she goes, I'm so sore today. I can't believe how sore I am from that stair climb. But, you were right. Like, so, the worst time to find out that you can't do something is when you need to be able to do that thing. And so variety is very important in your workouts. You want to try to mix things up. Unless you're training for something very specific, specificity training is really important. If you're a tennis player, you have to work on your forehand, your backhand, so on and so forth. But for most of the rest of us, we just want to be able to move freely without injury, without any duress. So variety is, and also another great point about variety is it helps keep you sane, right? That's one of the things that people don't like about exercise is the repetitiveness of doing the same thing over and over and over. So if you're not training for something specific, then definitely mix in as much variety. Just, what do you feel like doing today? And mix it in. If it's a new activity or something you haven't done in a long time, take it easy. When after I had my hip surgery last year, I was on a walker for 3 days. And on the fourth day, I went outside with my cane and I didn't use it. And I went for a walk of about a half a mile and came back. And man, did I have some ankle issues after that. Because I had not walked that type of distance since before my surgery, long before my surgery. And so just because I could doesn't mean I should. So be mindful of whatever it is that you think you want to do. If it's an activity that you have not done in a long time or never have done, aim for maybe 50% of that. And that's another reason why people skip workouts, by the way. When I say, I want you to go to the gym tomorrow and do a workout, immediately the first thing that comes to mind is the toughest workout you've ever had when you were in the optimum shape, the best shape of your life. You're like, oh, I should be able to jump rope for 15 minutes. And you go out there and you tear an Achilles or something like that because your body's like, oh, your mind thought so, but your body was like, no. Did I answer all the questions so far, or did I leave any unanswered?
I just wanted to just clarify a good point you made about the stairs. I absolutely hate the Stairmaster. But I know, when you're in buildings or, like you said, going from a floor to floor, take the stairs whenever possible. What other ways would you suggest other than Stairmaster? Unless that's the best way, then I'll just power through to kind of get that kind of a workout in, as you said, for those steps.
Well, so the Stairmaster is a very good machine. But it's not necessarily. What is the Stairmaster emulating?
Climbing stairs.
Climbing the stairs. So, you can just do the stairs. You're not going to go for the duration that you could go for on the Stairmaster.
Mm-hmm.
But there's two important things to remember. People who I have clients who run on a treadmill for like an hour. And then they want to decide they want to get out and they want to compete in a 5K or something. They want to get out and run. So we go out and they go, my God, like my body's really hurting. How come? I run the treadmill all the time. And I said, that's because when you're on the treadmill, just like when you're on a step mill, it's not that you're pushing yourself up, and climbing these stairs. You're just trying to move your feet so that you don't fall down when the stairs end up at the bottom. So you're really more or less just trying to keep up with the movement versus trying to propel your body weight up. So it's a little bit more demanding. And then you can start out, nice and easy. You can, go a couple flights of stairs and then walk back down. I've done that many, many times in buildings. Just do repeater stairs. You can try going up sideways on the stairs as well, which gets a little bit more gluteus maximus and glute medius involvement.
Okay.
I would discourage anyone from walking up the stairs backwards. I see people doing that to work what they think is it's going to work their quadriceps, specifically the vastus medialis oblique, that teardrop muscle right by the knee. It will work that muscle but not enough to offset the risk of falling by walking up those stairs backwards. But yeah, the step mill is a great machine. If you have a Versa climber, And if I don't know if everyone knows, the VersaClimber is a machine that like a step mill, but it also has
Oh.
handles, and you do this at the same time. That
Oh,
is, in my opinion, is the single best machine ever made.
really? Even over the elliptical?
Absolutely, absolutely. Elliptical doesn't fall. Elliptical is more in the middle of the pack.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as demanding. It's not as it doesn't work your body as well as you think it does. Um,
Sure.
the rower,
Yeah, rower.
rower
Like I have
machine.
bad knees, so that's why I'm asking for myself because the thought and a treadmill I don't even do because it is too much stress still on my knees to get at an incline. It's going to make a difference, but the stairmaster is not uncomfortable. It's hard, but it doesn't hurt my knees bad. But I was just curious. The elliptical I thought was the safe, the safe
Yeah,
route.
and
But
it
I do
is.
the rower.
Yeah,
Mhm.
elliptical is very safe, and it's a perfect choice for someone like you who's got knee issues. Any movement that you can do that doesn't create pain is what you want.
Okay.
So you're always going to be looking for how can I challenge my body and not put my joints in disarray, um, or in distress. Um, and again, another issue that we all have as we're getting older. I just turned 60 this past Saturday. As we're all getting older, arthritis. We have to be mindful of developing arthritis, either rheumatoid or osteoarthritis. So, definitely have to be mindful of that. And so, anytime you're doing any kind of physical activity and you're having some joint pain, just pay attention to it. And if you need to get it checked out, get it checked out.
Rename the Versa Climber. I know
Mhm.
what it is. That's what you said is the best machine. It was in the chat. It's
Yeah,
called
in my opinion, that's the single best. Any gym I walk into and they have that thing, I'm
Mm.
getting on it. I'm getting on it. And the good news is you want to, so as I spent a lifetime in the gym, you want to know what cardio equipment works the best? It's the ones that are empty.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. I can see that.
Yeah, because the ones that are empty are the ones that people go, oh my God, what did I get myself into? And they stay away from. So you ever walk in and they've got 10 treadmills and 9 of them are filled up and they've got 2 Versa climbers and they're both empty, that should tell you something.
So
Mhm.
I'm going to change the conversation from the gym.
Okay.
People don't all go to the gym and have a membership. So if they want to start doing some things, what should individuals start doing? It's great if you've got a membership, but what can people start doing either at home or, line dancing, I know is one, those kinds of things. Let's do some practical stuff instead of using the gym equipment for a minute.
Yeah. And so, we all know how to sit down and we all know how to stand up from sitting down. And so that's a perfect place to start with a squat where you're either going to go all the way down and sit in the chair and then stand yourself back up. And if you have knee issues initially, you can use your hands and push your hands off your knees to stand yourself back up. Um, so that's a great place to start. If you once you start to progress past that, starts getting easier. Try lowering yourself down and tapping your butt on the chair and coming back up. If you tapping your butt so hard that you displace a vertebrae is not a good idea. Um, so you just want to lightly touch it, and then as you get better at that, then remove the chair and do body weight squats without anything behind you, and that's going to work the largest muscle group in the body, the legs. Um, and there's lots of different ways you can position your legs that's going to either work mostly the quadriceps in front or more the hamstrings and back or even more just the glutes in the back. There's lots of different ways you can modify that. You can do a lunge or a modified lunge. um, a modified lunge would be something like what's called a split squat, where you stand with your feet apart and then you just lower yourself down and stand yourself back up, without taking any steps. uh, 10 of those with the left leg forward, 10 of those with the right leg forward. Um, you can do reverse lunges, which work more of the glutes, the glutes and hamstrings, or you can do a forward stepping lunge, which works more of the quadriceps. Body weight exercises are absolutely great for developing and maintaining muscle, and also for burning fat and helping to elongate those muscles. Most of us don't need the gym. Most people don't need to be in the gym. So let's clear this here. There we go. All right, sorry about that. Some notification came up. But yeah, so you can do those kind of things for your lower body. You can do some heel raises for your calves. You can do some toe taps where you're standing, you just tap your toe here. That's going to work the anterior tibialis muscle that runs along the front of the shin and also affects your arch. That's the muscle that has to be strong to give you an arch. And then you can do some side planks, things like crunches and sit-ups. I would discourage you from doing. And the reason I'm discouraging you from doing is those exercises are not very good for your vertebrae. What happens is, your vertebrae are usually together like this, right? And you have a disc in between those vertebrae. Every time I go up into a crunch or up into a sit-up, it makes the arch of my lower back flatten out. And every time it flattens out, it takes that, let's see. Oh, here we go. It takes that disc that sits between those vertebrae and it does this to the disc. And it forces it out the back side. And so you can end up with a herniated disc at some point. So you want to modify that movement. There's this fantastic international back doctor named Stuart McGill. And Stuart McGill has what he calls the big three, which are three core exercises that have been modified so that they not only not hurt the back, but will help strengthen the back if you have low back pain already. The big three is what that's called by Stuart McGill. You can find it anywhere on the internet. He's been around forever. Great biomechanics person. And then push-ups are very important as well. You can start with a modified push-up on your knees. If that's too much, you can do push-ups from the wall. Lean into the wall and just push yourself away from it. The higher your arms are in relationship to the front of your body, the more shoulders you're going to be using and less chest you're going to be using. So if I'm leaning so far that I'm here and I'm pushing this way, that's all anterior deltoid here, the front head of the deltoid, and very little chest, very little pectoralis happening there. So start out, you can do push-ups, find a bench or something in your house that you can just lean onto and try doing just as many as you can do initially. Start with 5 or 4 or whatever. If it's too hard for you to even do one, then I recommend doing an isometric hold. Everyone here familiar with the terms isometric, concentric, and eccentric?
Tell us.
Okay, so there's 3 types of muscle flexion. There's concentric, and concentric is when I start in an elongated joint position and I apply force that decreases the angle of that joint.
Okay.
No matter where that is on my body, if it's my chest, I'm in the elongated and I'm going to decrease the angle here in that joint. That's called a concentric repetition or a concentric movement. That movement is probably the hardest movement out of all the 3. The second hardest movement is the isometric hold position. Isometric is whenever you take a resistance, some type of resistance, and you apply equal amount of force in the muscle as the amount of weight being that you're fighting against. So you pick up a 45-pound dumbbell and you hold it like this, and it doesn't move. It doesn't appear to move, at least, right? Because muscles are always moving, joints are always moving. But But you hold it like this for a minute or 30 seconds or something like that. That's an isometric movement. That's a stronger movement, right? If I give you a 45-pound dumbbell and tell you to do this with it, you might be able to do one, maybe two. If I give you a 45-pound dumbbell and tell you to just hold it like that, you'd probably be able to hold it for 30 seconds, right? But if I give you a 45-pound dumbbell and I tell you to lower it, which is called the eccentric phase of the movement, you're going to be able to do 5, maybe even 10 of those, right? And because you don't have to overcome gravity, you're just trying to slow down gravity's pull against you. So, so eccentric phase is the easiest of the three it's the easiest of the three contractions. But eccentric phase is the one that does the most muscle, that has the most muscle demand. And the reason I say that is, in order for me to do, let's say, 10, whatever weight I have, my body will move it until it can't move it anymore. And so typically what happens is that's not going to make me sore because there's not any muscle tearing going on. I get to a point where I cannot contract that muscle again. And that usually happens before the muscle starts to tear. And we want some muscle tearing to happen because we want the body to repair itself and replace and increase the muscle fiber volume so that it adapts to the resistance, so it makes you stronger, right? Your body's like, I don't know what she just did, but I didn't like it. But she's doing this every few days, so let me just build some more muscle so that we can overcome this weight. The eccentric portion of that is completely different because you can lower, and no matter how much it burns, you can continue to lower it. And then what happens is the failure that happens with the eccentric phase is when you get to that last one, you're pretty much dropping that weight. But by then you've done a lot of muscle tearing, and there's this thing called DOMS, which is what we refer to as delayed onset muscle soreness. And that typically means that second day soreness people talk about, that's what DOMS is. It's you've torn the muscles, and about 48 hours from now, you're going to be crying like a baby because you're going to be so sore.
What should we feed those muscles afterwards?
So depending on what time you eat, but immediately after a workout or the first meal after your workout, if you can help it, you want to try to get something in a liquid form.
Uh-huh.
And the reason you want to get something in a liquid form is because your digestive system is still pretty much shut down from inactivity, because your body's been redirecting all the energy towards muscle work, right? So it takes a couple hours for your digestive system to come back online. So liquid form is going to help your body digest it quicker. Some people like protein shakes and things like that. I think that's a waste of money. You can get all of the same benefits if you just get yourself a glass of low-fat chocolate milk. You get all of the same protein, carbohydrates. You need some carbs because the carbs are going to help your body to absorb the protein, right? So post-workout, some low-fat chocolate milk is a great low-price alternative. My clients love hearing that because they go stock up on the chocolate milk in the fridges now. But yeah, that's really good. And then within an hour after you've had your low-fat chocolate milk, then you want to eat a solid meal. Your body's in a high catabolic state still, so it's going to burn through a lot of stuff. For my clients who like to eat really messy, I say that's the one meal a day that you're allowed to eat messy, is that post-workout meal. If you've worked out really, really hard. But if you don't eat, if you still eat clean after that, for that meal after your workout, your body's just going to be burning fat like crazy. So it's if you can eat healthy, you want to have some healthy low-fat protein, fish, chicken. You want to try to stay with first of all, red meat is very good for particular things, right? Red meat's higher in iron. The bioavailability of the minerals in the red meat is really high, your body will absorb a lot of that. Um, um, and even the protein content's a better protein in the red meat than there is in like a tofu, right? But at the end of the day, we're not trying to become bodybuilders. We're just trying to get bigger and stronger, so that our bodies become more functional. And the goal for all of us, by the way, should be that we are still independent in our final days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that we can move our own bodies, that we can, open windows on our own, that we can go out for a walk, and that we're not bedridden or walking with a walker or any of the other things that happen. Women have to be extremely mindful of the fact that because of osteopenia and osteoporosis, a lot of times you see these women, these little old ladies who are bent over like this when they walk, and that just comes from fractures of the vertebrae, right? Because the vertebrae bones have become less dense, and they start to fracture and collapse upon themselves. So, you see some of these ladies and they have long legs. You're like, oh, she was probably 5'6" when she was like 30, but now she's like 5'3".
Ooh,
That's just because the back is continually fractured. Um, and so how do you counteract that? You do some weight bearing. You want to have some things that you're going to do over the shoulders, either sitting on the shoulders like a squat or lifting over the shoulders. That's going to compress the spine and keep those bones dense.
that's great. So, James, we're over time, but there's one question that came in through the chat, and it's about neck health
Okay.
and making sure, a lot of us have hurt neck, whatever. Any particular exercises and ways to, work our necks?
If your neck muscles are just weak and just weak, and it wasn't because of an injury or an accident, then there's a number of things you can do to strengthen. First of all, the neck muscles are extremely fragile, especially the muscles here on the side. I'm trying to remember what they're called now. It's been a long time. But you can lay on your bed and on your back and let your head hang over the side of the bed, and then lift your head up and bring your chin to your chest and lower back down. That's going to work on I'm sorry, I apologize. All the neck muscles have completely left me today. But you can do a couple repetitions there. You can do some isometric holds as well. Lift your head up, bring your chin to your chest, and hold for a count of 5, and then lower back down. That's going to help strengthen up the muscles as well. And then you're going to do the same thing. Lay on your stomach, head hanging over the side, and lift your head up and back down. Same thing. You can hold it and hold it for 5 seconds as well. And then that's really good. You can also work on some of the supporting muscles that help support the neck, which is the upper trapezius muscles up here, the muscles that sits between the shoulders and the neck. And we call them shrugs or I don't knows, right? And that's really, really good for that. And all those muscles work together, right? And so we never want to single out any particular muscle. We always want to try to work our muscles in groups. One, because it burns more calories. Two, because it's more functional. Like I said, some of those lunges work specifically to quadriceps or specifically the glute and the hamstrings. But when you're walking up a set of stairs, you're working all those muscles at the same time. So you want to try to work them all together.
That's great. So, everybody, we are at 7:38. This has been great. We've tried to capture some things, James. I'm going to thank you. And if you have any printed information with at-home exercises that you just described, would you shoot them over to Jap so that we could share with the group as a resource and put it on the website? That would be very, very helpful for
Sure.
this group.
And
That
any
would-
apps as well that are helpful.
I'm
And
sorry.
any
what?
apps that we could download, like you were saying, like if you don't go to the gym or at home workouts and such like that you find to be helpful.
Sure.
And also if he has anything on Achilles tendonitis or plantar fasciitis. I say this wrong every time. I've been self-diagnosing with Dr. Google, and so I think I have it. But before I go to my real doctor, I wondered if there were exercises that could determine, yep, that's what it is. Dr. Google was right.
That's great.
Sure.
Oh, I
Yeah,
love it.
plantar fasciitis and Achilles tendonitis. Okay.
Well, James, if people want to reach out to you, we will share and give your information out. I have 2 challenges for this group. He started this conversation by saying, park farther from your entrance. When you go someplace, it's warm enough and nice enough that we don't have to worry. So don't get that close parking space, do that. And 2, take the steps. This group, we want to take action, and those are 2 things that we can do very easily with each other. And when you see somebody at church or at the grocery store and they're up close, say, "Oh, I caught you, got you," and get them to move to the back or whatever that is, so that we can begin to implement some of these things. And the third thing is, everybody use your natural body weight and do those things that you can do at home and for yourself. James, we thank you. We will have you back again, because once we hear some of the things with diabetes, some of the things with heart disease, we will ask you to speak more specifically, as we talked about exercises that can help us with some of those things.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be great.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. I really
you.
appreciated your time. Many blessings.
Yes.
Thank you.
Have a
Take
great
care.
evening.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Okay.
Lisa.
Okay. All right.